Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to learn about T4America's new technical assistance program on performance measurements for MPOs. Today, we have two experts on site. We are Transportation for America. We are an alliance of elected business and civic leaders from communities across the country, united to ensure that states and the federal government invest in smart, locally driven transportation solutions. My name is Alicia Orozco, and I am the program manager here at T4America. Before we get started, I'll tell you that we are going to be taking questions via the chat box on your screen. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please let us know. We have experts here on site to answer your questions. Our team has designed a suite of tools for MPOs in various stages of performance measure development that may help you meet federal requirements in ways that address your unique needs in your region. And today we have two experts on our team. Our first expert is Beth Osborne. She is our senior advisor here at T4America and our lead for Smart Growth America's Technical Assistance Program. And later on, we also hear from Rayla Bellis, and she's a program manager from our parent organization as well, Smart Growth America, and she has been on our TA team and has been providing technical assistance to state DOTs and other transportation agencies. So to get us started, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Beth Osborne.
Thank you very much, Alicia, and welcome to everybody who is on the call. I am here today to announce our exciting new launch of a technical assistance program on performance management that is designed to help metropolitan planning organizations successfully respond to federal requirements. The new program that we are introducing today will help MPOs and their communities, one, understand federal laws and any state or local performance measurement requirements. Two, incorporate and respond to community concern comprehensively and inclusively. And three, use performance measures to select projects that reflect the regional vision and goals. One of the most promising strategies to help communities address their development and mobility goals is the adoption of performance management in transportation planning and project selection. This is particularly true in a fiscally constrained environment, which I think everyone agrees we all face. Under MAP 21, the Federal Surface Transportation Law passed in 2012, the law required states and MPOs to address 12 highway performance measures. There were also transit performance measures that apply to transit providers and safety performance measures that apply to state highway safety officers. But we're going to focus here on the highway performance measures that apply to MPOs and state DOTs. These include, but are not limited to, highway reliability, congestion, safety, state of repair, air pollution, and other areas. The U.S. Department of Transportation finalized the requirements for all of the new measures on January 18th of this year. The safety measure actually went final last year and is already in effect. And these rules will require all of the MPOs and state departments of transportation to develop performance targets under each of the measures that they have laid out, and then report back to the public and federal highways on whether or not they have hit their own self-selected targets. There are minor penalties for failing to miss the safety and state of repair targets, mostly that you lose the ability to flex money out of safety and state of repair programs. There is a great opportunity here with these measures as well. It allows MPOs and state DOTs to have a robust conversation about what current levels of funding can legitimately accomplish, and the answer is always less than the public thinks, and what it can't do, as well as what are the region's priorities and how do different priorities impact one another when you're using limited dollars to assign to an infinitely long list. To that end, you will probably notice that there are major priority areas that I did not mention in the MAP 21 performance measures, and I'm going to come back to that. Transportation for America conducted a national survey of 104 MPOs from 42 states last year. The majority of the MPOs we surveyed are extremely interested in becoming national leaders in performance measures. The majority of those surveyed, 69 of 104, want to go far beyond the modest measures required by MAP 21. In fact, only 7 of the 104 who were surveyed said that they are interested in merely meeting the MAP 21 statutory requirements. So the overwhelming majority want to go at least a little beyond what MAP 21 requires. Numerous MPOs are also interested in looking beyond, as I said, the list. They're understandably focused on things like system performance and conditions, but they feel like there are other issue areas that matter a lot to their constituents. And while this sort of process of performance management provides a great opportunity to discuss regional priorities and where emphasis should be, if you leave out major priority areas, your funding will emphasize Congress's priorities more so than your own region's priorities. So some of the areas that MPOs mentioned that they want to focus on are listed here. Equity, public health, and access to jobs and education and other important and essential needs. Other areas that people could be looking at include things like stormwater runoff, household transportation costs, walkability, bikeability. There are many areas that go beyond what Congress laid out, including a lot of economic development measures and how transportation does or does not spur economic development along the investment. As I said, if MPOs only measure the areas Congress could agree to and leaves out their own regional priorities that might not have made Congress's list, they may be emphasizing Congress's priorities over areas that are of equal or greater importance to the constituents in your area. And if you're measuring Congress's priorities and not your own, your funding will almost always prioritize the priorities you're measuring, and because we emphasize what it is we measure. So Transportation for America is providing MPOs with the tools and the understanding they need to develop robust performance measures that go beyond the federal minimum requirements. We've been doing this for a little while. We had a 2-year collaborative with a group of MPOs to advance health and equity as well as access to opportunity measures. We did a year-long Transportation Leadership Academy with 7 MPOs funded by the Federal Highway Administration. And we have put out a report called Measuring What We Value, which is available online. It includes case studies of those metropolitan planning organizations and regions that are already measuring, particularly public health and equity areas. In these efforts, we have profiled best practices and lessons learned. We've facilitated peer-to-peer conversations with states and MPOs who have already taken the first steps to implement performance management. And we provided information about data and tools available to support this work. From here, I'm going to turn things over to Ray LaBellis, who is going to talk about the particular offer that we're making today in terms of technical assistance.
Excellent. Thank you, Beth. As Beth said, my name is Ray LaBellis. I'm a program manager with T4 America, which is the parent organization of Transportation for America. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what this technical assistance that we're offering is going to look like, and provide some guidance on how you can apply, and answer all your burning questions about the application process. So T4 America has designed a suite of technical assistance offerings really intended to meet metropolitan planning organizations where they're at in terms of their current performance measurement efforts. Whether you're just beginning to consider performance measures in response to the MAP 21 requirements, or are running into specific challenges with implementation, either technical, data-related challenges, maybe stakeholder engagement challenges related to getting buy-in from your constituents. So we've designed a menu of technical assistance offerings to help meet federal requirements in ways that are also tailored to the specific and unique needs of your regions, like Beth was mentioning. As Beth touched on, we want to help MPOs that are interested in taking innovative approaches to current performance measurement best practices. That might mean looking at topics outside of the MAP 21 requirements, such as public health, access to opportunity, economic competitiveness, other topics like that. It could also mean developing performance measures for project selection level. So a number of MPOs are looking at integrating performance measures within planning or are already doing some of that. Relatively few, according to our survey, are currently incorporating measures at the project selection level, but that's really the best way to guide investments to accomplish some of the goals established at the planning level. So we're offering 3 basic tiers of assistance that you can apply for. There's a 101 level, a 201 level, and a 301 level of assistance. Each has a standard set of services associated with them, but it can be customized to meet the specific needs and goals of your region. The 101 level is designed to provide an introduction to performance measurement, including both the basics of the federal requirements, as well as ways to think about how to tailor those requirements in your own performance measures to your specific community goals. So it's intended to help provide a platform for introducing performance measures concepts to a variety of stakeholders within your region or community. And you can really choose which types of stakeholders you'd like to focus this assistance on. So for example, you could choose to work mainly with the staff within your MPO for this assistance. You could also choose to bring in other external stakeholders like elected officials, advocates, or community leaders, really depending on which groups you feel you need to engage or educate or bring on board to build buy-in.
And this is Beth Osborne. I want to add that in our work, both with the 2-year collaborative and the Federal Highways 1-year-long collaborative, we strongly encourage MPOs to bring business leaders in, civic leaders in. Those are the people that once you pick a course of action, they're going to have your back and support the new direction in a way that it's very hard for staff to do on their own.
Absolutely. So part of the purpose of this 101 level of assistance is to help build a common understanding among some of these stakeholders in terms of terminology and concepts, and then also to help demonstrate some of the value or the benefits of performance measurement to any decision makers or constituents that you need to bring in that aren't fully bought in yet to the concepts of performance measurement. So the typical services provided for the 101 level of assistance, it's an interactive 1-day workshop. This could be closed doors or it could be a public event for your chosen audiences, led by 2 national experts, followed by a summary memo basically outlining the outcomes of the workshop and key next steps, as well as potential for follow-up calls. Then the 201 level of assistance is really about peer-to-peer sharing. MPOs receiving this 201 level will receive curated research support, including an evaluation of existing tools and resources available to help measure performance in your areas of focus, whatever they might be, and case studies of other places that are already looking at those topics and how to measure them. Participants at this level will learn about other MPOs that have established objectives-driven planning, programming, and design processes to improve accountability and the effectiveness of their programs. And they'll be able to interact with peer agencies with similar goals or challenges and learn from their experiences. So as Beth mentioned, T4 has worked with a number of MPOs and surveyed an even larger number through some of our work described earlier, so we can help connect you with MPOs that can provide helpful lessons and experiences based on the specific goals that you have. So the typical services provided at the 201 level, there's a longer workshop, 1.5 days in this case, and speakers in this case would include a combination of instructors from the T4A team, as well as other subject matter experts and or representatives from peer MPOs, depending on how we choose to focus the technical assistance through our conversations with you. The 201 level also up front includes a research scan and white paper of case studies that would be delivered leading up to the workshop to help frame the conversation. And then the 301 level is designed for more advanced MPOs who are interested in taking the next step, as I mentioned earlier, in translating some of their planning level performance measures they've begun to look at into criteria they can use during project prioritization and selection. So those performance measures used at those 2 different levels are going to look a little bit different. So this is about helping to figure out how to translate them. The 301 level recipients of this assistance will receive tailored support, basically in assessing their current performance measurement work and policy priorities for the region, identifying project level measures that align with those priorities, and then working through strategies for integrating those measures into their project selection process. as well as tailoring the methodologies and data sources that are being used nationally into their own region's needs. The typical services provided at the 301 level of assistance are a series of site visits, up to 3 typically, with your agency to assess your current performance measurement approaches and discuss national best practices and how the two fit with each other, and then develop and refine performance-based project selection frameworks. And in some cases, this will include help with messaging, as well as potentially training key stakeholders to communicate effectively about the topics that your region chooses to focus on, and then would conclude with a summary report following the assistance. And the results of the 301 level would be a fleshed out framework, basically of project scoring or selection criteria and measures that your agency could use and integrate into the project development process. So in terms of the cost of this assistance, T4 is currently planning to offer this assistance on an ongoing basis moving forward, but for this first round, we have a unique opportunity through funding from a national foundation, the Kresge Foundation, to offer it at a significantly reduced cost to a limited number of applicants. This isn't likely to be an opportunity available moving forward after this first round of assistance. So this is what the breakdown of costs looks like for this first round of assistance. The 101 level typically costs $25,000, and we'll be offering it at just $5,000 in this case. This is the introduction to performance measurement. The 201 level typically would cost $50,000, but for this current iteration, we'll be offering it at $10,000. And then the 301 level, which is very in-depth, would typically cost $125,000, and it's just going to be $25,000 in this case. So it's a great discount for your region. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about how to apply for this assistance, including the process and the timeline. All of this information is also available on T4 America's website, so you can go check it out at your leisure. We're currently in the process of running the competitive application process to select applicants for this assistance. In terms of the eligibility, the assistance is designed specifically for metropolitan planning organizations, so the lead entity applying should be an MPO. But as Beth said, you're welcome and even encouraged to list other groups in your application that you would like to include and bring in. That could be your local municipality partners, that could be elected officials, that could be an advocacy group, other stakeholders you'd like to involve. In terms of the timeline, the application process has been open for about 3 weeks, and it closes in about a week and a half on COB Friday, March 10th. And we'll be notifying the recipients that have been selected for the assistance no later than April 3rd. So to submit your application, you'll use this link to T4 America's website. There are 2 ways you can apply. There's a PDF form you can download from this page, this link, which has detailed guidance, a lot of what I'm going over now, about the assistance and the application process, that you can download, fill out answers either electronically or by hand to the questions on the application, and then email it to assistance@t4america.org. So that's one way to apply. The second way, we have an online application form you can use that you can access from the same link on T4 America's website to submit your application. The one thing to note with the online application form is that there's no way to save your application partway through. So we'd recommend typing up your answers in advance and then pasting them into the fields to submit it. And this is what the first page of that online application form looks like, just for your reference. There's that bar at the top, the blue and gray bar shows you how far along you are in the form. This is the first of 4 pages for the application. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the application itself and what we're looking for in selecting MPOs to receive this assistance. So these are the 4 major criteria that we're looking at in evaluating applications. The first is interest in performance measurement. So T4 America is interested in working with MPOs that demonstrate a desire to meet the MAP 21 requirements, but also leverage those requirements to better address the goals of the regions they serve and generally improve the accountability and the effectiveness of their programs. So you can demonstrate your interest in performance measurement by describing the steps you've already taken to adopt performance-based decision-making practices in your application, and steps you're considering taking, and basically how you're approaching performance-based decision-making. in terms of readiness to implement, T4 is going to be prioritizing applicants that are well positioned to act on the concepts covered during the training and that demonstrate a readiness to integrate those concepts into their decision-making practices. And this will depend partially on the timing of applicants' long-range planning cycles as well as other factors. Interest in health, equity, and access. So MPOs can apply for this assistance to address a range of topics, and there's 7 listed specifically on the application form: access to opportunity, economic development, environmental sustainability, equity, resilience, placemaking, and public health. For this round with this financial assistance offering that we can provide, we're going to be giving priority to MPOs that demonstrate a strong interest specifically in public health, access, and equity. And that's partially based on SGA's priorities as well as the priorities of the Kresge Foundation, which is helping to sponsor this first round. And then finally, capacity to help plan and deliver the assistance. Participants of this assistance may be asked to provide support in doing things like identifying venues for a workshop, inviting participants, and other logistics. So basically, we're just looking for applicants that are willing to be partners with T4 America in planning the assistance and that can show that they have some minimal staff capacity to support and deliver the assistance for success. And then I just wanted really briefly to walk through the questions you'll find in the application process in case any of it feels unclear to you and you've had a chance to look at it. Up front, we first ask you basically for the contact information of the MPO that's applying. Like I said, the lead applicant has to be an MPO. And then you're asked to choose up front either the 101, 201, or 301 level, so you have to select one. Then the first question is basically on prior or current work on performance measures. As I mentioned, we really just want to get a sense of your agency or your region, what they've already done in terms of performance measurement, what you're looking to do. That might include things like a policy statement, something in your current long-range transportation plan. This is relatively open-ended on purpose because there's some customization available within this assistance. We're just trying to get a feel for what some of these concepts mean to your agency so that we can best tailor the assistance to meet your needs. And then question 2 is pretty straightforward. As I mentioned, we list these 7 specific topics of focus for the assistance. There are others that you could choose to focus on. We just want to get a sense of where your priorities lie in these areas. As I mentioned, equity, public health, and access to opportunity are priorities within this first round for us. That doesn't necessarily mean those have to be your top 3. You could choose to focus on one of those and some other priorities, but that's just where we're coming from. Then question 3 asks for your agency's definition of equity. So this is important. Even though social equity may not be the main topic that you want to focus on in developing performance measures specifically tied to equity or related to equity, it's going to be a thread throughout all of the assistance provided under this program. So we just want to get a sense of, for your agency, what exactly does equity mean and how has that been used in your work? What past actions by your MPO have embodied that definition, basically. Question 4 is an important one. It asks you to describe your statement of needs. In relatively plain language, we just want a description of the assistance that your region is looking for and specific barriers and challenges that you might be facing. So within either the 101, 201, or 301 level, what exactly is what is the need that you're hoping this assistance will address? And then related to that, question 4 asks for a specific discussion of how you'd like us to focus the assistance. So that might mean topics of focus, specific desired participants, that kind of thing. And then we ask you to briefly articulate how the assistance you're requesting would address the need identified in the statement of need, the previous question. So the 2 should go together and reflect each other, basically. Then question 6 concerns how this assistance fits into other milestones for your agency and timing for those milestones. So we ask you to describe the timeline of your current long-range planning process and how this TA would fit into that. And part of the reason for that is that the way that we focus the TA will probably change slightly depending on where you are in the process in order to make it as impactful as possible. And then we also ask you to discuss any other internal processes or milestones and any external factors that should be considered in terms of the timing for the assistance to make it as valuable for you, as useful, as relevant, and so on. Question 7 on partnerships and engagement. This just asks you to briefly describe the staff commitment you can offer in terms of planning and delivering this assistance. This doesn't have to be major commitment, but as I mentioned earlier, in terms of how we'll be evaluating applications, we think the TA will be more successful if there's commitment of some kind available from the MPO to help in the planning to make it as successful as possible. So answering this question could be as simple as listing a position within your organization that's going to be the main point of contact and would be available to help us in planning, something like that. Question 8 is a discussion of your commitment to health and equity. Successful completion of this assistance from T4 America's perspective will result in a commitment from each of the participating regions to incorporating the learning concepts into their activities. But commitment can mean lots of different things, and we recognize that it really depends on where you are in the process. So this question is basically asking, for you, based on your current goals and where you are in the process of integrating performance measurement into your practices, what would a commitment really look like? Is it something in your planning documents? Is it something in the TIF? Just so we can use that to help evaluate how successful the TA has been in accomplishing what you want to accomplish. And then finally, question 9, this is fairly straightforward. Applicants have the option to further reduce the cost of the TA through in-kind contributions, things like providing a venue for a workshop free of cost or catering or printing support, that sort of thing. So this question basically just asks you to check a box for any in-kind contributions you think you could offer. This isn't a commitment you're making, but we'll discuss it further with you if your application is selected. Just a couple more quick things. If you have any questions in advance about the application process or you want to let us know you're planning to apply, you can email. This is the same email address you'll submit your application to, assistance@t4america.org. And then on the flip side, the T4 America team may also reach out to applicants in March after the application period is closed to discuss your application further in more detail before selecting the recipients of this TA. And then finally, just a quick reminder that applications are due shortly, Friday, March 10th. You have about a week and a half, close of business. And I think with that, we have plenty of time to move to Q&A.
Thank you, Beth and Rayla. That was really good information. We do have some questions. So the first one is, can you give us a little bit more information and some examples of what you mean by health, access, and equity, and what are some performance metrics that fit in those categories?
So actually those measures are reasonably descriptive of what we're talking about. I think equity is the one area that's a little different in that a lot of times folks come to us and say, I want a way to measure the equitability of the transportation system. And what we tend to find is most effective is looking at equity breakouts of other priority areas. So rather than trying to find that perfect measure that determines whether or not the transportation system is serving people equitably, you look at whether or not the safety benefits of the system are landing equitably across all income levels, or whether one group might be bearing a higher burden. So you can have regionally pretty good safety numbers, but if you look at how it impacts poor communities, you might find out that your safety numbers are outstanding in wealthy communities and not very good in poor communities. And while that might average out to something okay, a lot of areas don't think that's sufficient. So that's an example on equity. In terms of public health, folks are looking at the extent to which the transportation system supports active transportation and active living. They're interested in the extent to which the system might impact public health. Sometimes they talk about the safety aspects. Sometimes they talk about pollution, stormwater, those sorts of things. So there's a lot of different ways to cut the public health side, but it's really bringing it to the full outcome to see are you seeing asthma rates or obesity rates go up or down. And then in terms of access to opportunity, this is a real emerging area in transportation. And it's the notion of how long does it take you to get to your job, for example, or to your school. Traditionally, what we have done is measured whether or not your auto trip moves at a high speed. So it's not whether or not it takes you a short or a long time to get there. It is whether or not in your trip you are moving at a high rate of speed. So there are areas that support a lot of high-speed travel, and while every trip might take you 50 minutes in a car and be completely inaccessible by all other means of travel, your travel along that very long way, and I'm not talking about rural areas, I'm talking about in urban areas, your travel along that long distance is fast, and that is cited as somehow a great success as compared to an area where you might move slower, but you arrive in 10 minutes. And so access to opportunity is looking at the entirety of the trip from the user's perspective, excuse me, and it's looking at whether or not those needs and opportunities are available through multiple modes of travel. And there are now tools available to judge the extent to which your area provides good overall access to daily necessities.
Thank you, Beth. There is a question about sensitive information that they will provide possibly in the application, and if the is confidential.
Yes, absolutely. We also received a question, will there be future rounds of this assistance, and will there be similar assistance available for state DOTs or transit agencies that may have similar requirements they're facing? And the answer to that question is we intend to offer similar assistance to MPOs in the future, but unlikely to be offered at the discounted rate that we can currently offer it at. And in terms of DOTs and transit agencies, it's really up in the air at this point.
Yeah, right now we do not have any funding available to support that.
Exactly.
But if there are DOTs or transit agencies that are interested in talking further, and not at the discounted rate, we would be happy to have that discussion with you.
We also received a question. What other information or resources does T4 America have available on this subject that they can offer? To which we have a number of resources. Let's see, Smart Growth America recently released a guidebook on measuring access in particular to Beth's point that she was just making, and that's available on the Smart Growth America website. And it talks about how to measure it, some of the approaches that Beth was talking about, as well as examples of agencies, both MPOs and state DOTs and some local agencies that are already measuring it in some way, and then looking at how to incorporate it into their decision making, whether in scenario planning or project selection or alternatives analysis.
We also have a couple of reports called Measuring What You Value. One of those reports has to deal, is an overview of performance management and kind of what the state of the practice is, and one focuses particularly on those regions that have focused on measuring public health.
One final question we received. When the new President Trump took office, he suspended requirements. How does this impact MAP 21? How might it impact this assistance?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When I was at U.S. Department of Transportation and we took on this rulemaking after MAP 21, we realized that it was going to be a very complicated rulemaking in spite of the fact that it was only about 3 pages long in MAP 21 and looked pretty simple there. It turned out that we were absolutely right, and it has taken someplace around 700 pages of regulation to actually implement. It was implemented in a bunch of different chunks. One are the safety measures. They went final, I want to say last August. So they were not impacted by the suspension of regulations by the new administration. The second two those are the state of repair measures and system performance measures. So far, there does not appear to be anything on the horizon but a delay in those areas, and I would be extremely surprised if there was anything done to delay the state of repair measures, which is an area where there's a lot of support. And if there was a move to hold off further on the system performance measures, areas like congestion and reliability and air pollution, things like that, that would have to be replaced with another set of rules because MAP 21 requires these areas be measured. So I think the most that could happen is there could be further delay on those system performance measures, and then they would eventually be replaced anyway. and MPOs are going to be implementing the state of repair and safety measures in the very near future.
Thank you, Beth. I think those are all the questions. We definitely want to make sure that you guys have listened to everything we have to offer. As Rayla mentioned, reminders to submit applications by Friday, March 10th at p.m. Eastern Time. And I'm going to pull, again, the website where you can go ahead and apply. If you have any questions, contact our team. Thank you for listening in, and everyone have a great day.